The crystal towers of Zentara Prime stretched into the purple sky like frozen lightning. Ambassador Jake Morrison stood in the center of the Great Hall watching 12 different alien species take their seats around the massive circular table. His hands were steady, but his heart was beating fast. Today would decide if humanity could join the Galactic Council or remain alone in the dark corners of space. The Zephyrians entered first, with their long snake-like bodies and glowing yellow eyes. High Counselor Vextar moved with the grace of a predator, and his scaled skin shimmered under the artificial lights. Behind him came the crystallines, who looked like walking diamonds and made soft ringing sounds when they moved. The Aquarians flowed into their water-filled seats like living oceans, while the ethereals appeared as floating balls of pure energy. Jake had practiced his speech 100 times, but now the words felt heavy in his mouth. Captain Lisa Hayes sat in the gallery above, watching everything with sharp eyes. She wore her blue military uniform with pride, and her blonde hair was pulled back in a tight bun. Lisa had fought in 3 wars to protect Earth, and she did not like the way some of these aliens were looking at her. Ambassador. The floor recognizes Ambassador Morrison of the human species, announced the council speaker through the translation device that made all languages sound the same. Jake stepped forward and activated his holographic display. Images of Earth appeared in the air, showing blue oceans and green continents. Honored council members, humanity comes before you today seeking membership in this great alliance. We offer our skills in engineering, medicine, and exploration to benefit all civilized worlds. The first laugh came from Vextar. It was a hissing sound that made Jake's skin crawl. Engineering, the Zephyrian said through his translator. These mammals have barely learned to leave their own planet. They still use primitive fusion drives and metal ships. The crystallines began their harmonic giggling, which sounded like wine chimes in a storm. Their largest vessel carries fewer than 500 beings, chimed one of them. Our scout ships are larger than their flagships. Jake tried to continue his presentation, but more laughter filled the hall. The machine race called. The collective spoke in their electronic voices. Analysis complete. Human technology is approximately 2,000 years behind current council standards. Military capability rated as minimal threat level. Perhaps, interrupted an Aquarian delegate with bubbles rising from her breathing apparatus. The humans should focus on achieving basic spaceflight before attempting to join advanced civilizations. Lisa Hayes felt her jaw clench as she watched the aliens mock her people. She had seen human courage in the worst battles and knew what her species could do when pushed to their limits. But here in this gleaming hall, surrounded by beings who traveled between stars like humans crossed oceans, she began to understand how small Earth must seem. Jake pressed on, showing images of human cities and achievements, but the damage was done. Vextar raised one clawed hand for silence. The Zephyrian Empire has observed human behavior for 50 of their years. They are violent creatures who wage war against their own kind. Their history is written in blood, and their first response to any problem is aggression. The humans, added a tall gray being from the Void Walkers, have not even unified their own world. How can they claim to represent a single civilization when they are divided into hundreds of competing nations? The Ethereal Council member pulsed with different colors as it spoke. We sense great potential in the human species, but they are not ready for the responsibilities that come with galactic citizenship. Their minds are still clouded by primitive emotions like anger and fear. Jake felt the weight of failure settling on his shoulders, but he made one last attempt. We understand that humanity has made mistakes in our past, but we have also shown the ability to learn and grow. We ended our world wars and united to explore space together. We seek knowledge and friendship with other species. Vextar's laugh was louder this time. Friendship, he hissed. Humans make friends at the point of a weapon. Their diplomats carry soldiers, and their exploration ships mount weapons. Even now, their representative travels with military escorts. The council began to murmur among themselves in their various languages, while the translation system struggled to keep up. Jake could feel the decision forming before it was announced. Captain Hayes watched from above, knowing that her worst fears "We're about to come true," the speaker called for order and the Great Hall fell silent. "The Galactic Council has reached a unanimous decision regarding the human application for membership. The request is denied due to insufficient technological development and concerns about species maturity. Humanity may reapply for consideration in 1,000 Earth years when they have demonstrated significant advancement in both areas." Jake nodded stiffly and gathered his materials. As he walked toward the exit, Vexstar called out one final insult. "Perhaps by then the humans will have learned that the universe does not need more warriors. It needs builders and thinkers." The great doors closed behind Jake with a sound like thunder. In the gallery, Lisa Hayes was already planning her report. To Earth Command, the aliens had made their decision, but they had also made a mistake. They had judged humanity by their past without considering what they might become when threatened. That mistake would cost them dearly in the months ahead. Back on Earth, Admiral Rick Carter was waiting for news of the Council decision. Deep in the Pacific Ocean, Dr. Angela Foster continued her work on Project Titan, unaware that her research would soon become humanity's greatest hope. The galaxy had rejected Earth, but Earth was not finished with the galaxy. 3 months had passed since the Council rejected humanity, and Jake Morrison was still on Zentara Prime trying to salvage something from the diplomatic disaster. He spent his days meeting with individual Council members, hoping to find allies, but most doors remained closed to him. The few who would speak to him offered only polite words and empty promises. Earth had grown quiet in those months. The news of the rejection had spread across every nation and continent. Some people were angry while others felt ashamed that their species had been found wanting by the galactic community. But in the deep command centers where Admiral Rick Carter worked, the rejection had sparked something else entirely. The alarm began sounding at 06:00 hours Earth Standard Time. Carter was drinking his morning coffee when Lieutenant Bobby Chen burst into his office with a data pad in his trembling hands. "Sir, we have multiple contacts at the edge of the solar system." "Big ones." Carter set down his cup and took the pad. The sensor readings showed 15 massive objects moving in perfect formation toward Earth. Each ship was over 2 kilometers long and bristled with weapon arrays that could be seen even at this distance. "Zephyrian design," he said quietly. "Get me President Walsh immediately." The emergency session in the White House Situation Room was unlike anything in human history. President Danny Walsh sat at the head of the table surrounded by his top advisors while holographic displays showed the approaching alien fleet. General Kate Phillips had her arms crossed and her face was set in hard lines. Secretary Tony Brooks kept checking his phone as if hoping the whole situation might disappear. "How long do we have?" Walsh asked Carter, who was attending via secure video link from his command center. 18 hours before they reach Earth orbit, Carter replied. "Maybe 20 if they slow down." "Options," Walsh said, looking around the table. General Phillips spoke first. "We mobilize everything we have, every ship, every weapon, every soldier. We make them pay for every inch of space they take." With what Brooks shot back. "Our entire fleet is 37 ships and most of them are exploration vessels with light armament. They have 15 battle cruisers, so we surrender," Phillips said with disgust. "Hand over our world without a fight." "I am exploring all diplomatic channels," Brooks insisted. "Maybe we can negotiate some kind of autonomous zone or protectorate." "Status." Carter's voice cut through their argument. "Sir, we are receiving a transmission from the lead Zephyrian vessel. It is on all frequencies." The main screen flickered and showed the bridge of a Zephyrian warship. High Commander Velthic filled the frame with his massive skilled form and burning yellow eyes. When he spoke, his voice carried the cold certainty of absolute power. "Humans of Earth, I am High Commander Velthic of the Zephyrian Imperial Fleet. Your species has been judged a potential threat to galactic peace and stability. You have 72 hours to surrender your world for protective custody under Zephyrian administration. Resistance will be met with pacification protocols. You will maintain radio silence until you are ready to announce your surrender." The transmission ended, leaving the room in stunned silence. Walsh looked at each of his advisors in turn. Protective. Custody, he said. What does that mean exactly? It means slavery, Phillips said flatly. They dress it up in nice words, but they mean to occupy our world and control our people. Far from Earth on Zentara Prime, Jake Morrison was running through the crystal corridors trying to reach the emergency session that the Council had called. The news of the Zephyrian fleet had spread quickly, and for the first time since his arrival, Jake saw something like concern on alien faces. He burst into the smaller chamber where 5 council members had gathered. Vexstar was there along with representatives from the Aquarians, crystallines, and to other species. They looked up as Jake entered, and he saw something in their expressions that had not been there before. Ambassador Morrison said, the Aquarian delegate, whose name was Kira Sudal. We have received word of Zephyrian fleet movements toward your system. You have to stop them, Jake said, breathing hard from his run. This is exactly what we warned you about. The Zephyrians are acting without council authority. Vexstar made that hissing laugh again. The Zephyrian Empire has every right to protect itself from potential threats. Your species showed aggressive tendencies during your presentation. We showed you our military because you asked about our defenses, Jake shot back. Every species has the right to protect itself. Perhaps, said the crystalline delegate in its chiming voice, the humans should have considered the consequences of their warlike nature before applying for council membership. Jake felt desperation rising in his chest. You are condemning an entire species based on assumptions and prejudice. We came to you in peace seeking knowledge and friendship, and now you will receive the peace that the galaxy requires, Vexstar said with satisfaction. Under proper Zephyrian guidance, your species will learn to channel its energies in more productive directions. This is genocide, Jake said quietly. This is order, Vexstar replied. Back on Earth, the clock was ticking down. In underwater facilities around the globe, Dr. Angela Foster was working around the clock to complete Project Titan. She had been given unlimited resources and told to prepare for immediate deployment. Her team of scientists and engineers had not slept in 36 hours. The quantum entanglement arrays are coming online, reported Dr. Carl Johnson as he monitored a bank of computers. We should have full network capability within 12 hours. That is cutting it close, Foster said as she checked the status of manufacturing facilities across 3 continents. How are the orbital platforms? 60% complete, Johnson replied. The automated systems are working faster than we projected, but we are still behind schedule. Foster looked at the countdown timer on her wall. 43 hours remained until the Zephyrian deadline. She thought about her daughter, who was in a shelter on the other side of the world, and her husband, who was helping evacuate civilians from major cities. They were all counting on her to give humanity a fighting chance. President Walsh made his decision at 1400 hours. He stood before the cameras in the Oval Office and addressed not just his own people, but the entire galaxy that was watching through intercepted transmissions to the Zephyrian fleet approaching our world. We reject your ultimatum. Earth will not surrender to threats or bow to tyranny. We are a free people, and we will remain free regardless of the cost. To the Galactic Council that turned its back on us, we say this. You will learn what humanity is truly capable of when we fight for our survival. The transmission ended, and across Earth the final preparations began. Captain Lisa Hayes was in space, preparing her squadron for what might be their last battle. Admiral Carter was coordinating defensive positions throughout the solar system. In hidden bases and secret facilities, weapons that had never been tested were being brought online. The galaxy was about to discover that humanity had not told them everything during their application for council membership. Some secrets were too dangerous to share with those who might become enemies. The Zephyrians thought they were attacking a primitive species armed with crude weapons and simple tactics. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The Zephyrian fleet moved through space like a school of mechanical sharks. High Commander Velthic stood on the bridge of his flagship watching Earth grow larger than the main screen. The blue and white planet looked peaceful and defenseless, just as intelligence reports had suggested. His yellow eyes gleamed with satisfaction as he prepared to add another world to the Zephyrian Empire. energy signatures detected, reported his tactical officer. Multiple small vessels moving to intercept us near the third moon. Velthic examined the sensor readings with amusement. 37 human ships were forming up in what appeared to be a battle line. Their largest vessel was barely 400 meters long, while his smallest destroyer was twice that size. Admirable courage, he said to his officers. But courage without wisdom is merely suicide. Captain Lisa Hayes checked her instruments one final time as her squadron took position alongside the other human ships. Around her, the pilots were young men and women who had volunteered to be humanity's first line of defense. Lieutenant Sam Parker was on her left wing while Commander Pete Johnson held the right. They all knew the odds, but none of them had suggested retreat. All ships, this is Admiral Carter, came the voice through their communications system. You are the tip of the spear. Make them remember that humans do not go quietly into the night. The first engagement began when Zephyrian fighters launched from their carrier ships. Sleek silver craft that moved like liquid mercury through space, racing toward the human formation at speeds that should have been impossible. Lisa checked her targeting systems and selected her first opponent. Contact in 30 seconds, she announced to her wing. Remember your training and watch your fuel consumption. The battle opened exactly as every simulation had predicted. Human kinetic weapons struck Zephyrian energy shields and dissipated harmlessly, while alien plasma cannons tore through human armor like paper. Within minutes, 3 human ships were drifting wrecks, and the Zephyrians had lost nothing. Velthic watched the slaughter with professional detachment. Maintain formation and advance on the planet. These defenders will be swept aside within the hour, but then something unexpected happened. From hidden positions throughout the asteroid belt, massive electromagnetic signatures began to bloom on Zephyrian sensors. The aliens had been so focused on the human fleet that they had missed the installations camouflaged among the rocks and debris. New contacts, reported the tactical officer with confusion in his voice. Large stationary platforms throughout the belt. They appeared to be charging some kind of weapon system. Dr. Angela Foster sat in her control center 3 kilometers beneath the Pacific Ocean, watching as Project Titan came online. Around her, dozens of technicians monitored the quantum entanglement network that connected every human military asset in the solar system. For the first time in human history, their entire military was operating as a single coordinated organism. All real gun platforms report ready, announced Dr. Carl Johnson from his station. Targeting solutions locked. Fire, Foster said quietly. The universe changed in that instant. From 37 different positions throughout the asteroid belt, electromagnetic launchers fired solid projectiles at 12% of light speed. The math was simple and brutal. No energy shield in the galaxy stopped solid matter moving at relativistic velocities. The first salvo struck the Zephyrian formation like hammers from the gods. 3 destroyers simply vanished in clouds of superheated plasma, while a battle cruiser broke in half as a tungsten rod punched through its entire length. The aliens had never seen weapons like these, because no civilized species would build such monstrous devices. Impossible, Velthic snarled as his ship shook from a near miss. Where did they get relativistic weapons? His science officer was frantically scanning the human installations. Commander, the projectiles are not energy-based. They are solid matter accelerated to extreme velocities. Our shields cannot deflect them. The second salvo followed 10 seconds later with perfect precision. More Zephyrian ships died as tungsten rods traveling at 36,000 kilometers per second turned advanced alien technology into expanding clouds of debris. The human fleet that had seemed so outmatched suddenly became deadly as their conventional weapons found targets whose shields had been overwhelmed. Captain Hayes led her surviving fighters in a strafing run against a damaged Zephyrian cruiser. Her pulse cannons stitched fire across its hull, while Sam Parker put a missile into its engine compartment. The great ship began to list as atmosphere vented from dozens of breaches. This is madness, transmitted a Zephyrian pilot as his fighter was destroyed by Lieutenant Bobby Chen flying an outdated human interceptor. How are they coordinating their attacks? The answer lay in the quantum entanglement network that Dr. Foster had built. Every human ship and platform was connected through instantaneous communication that allowed perfect coordination across vast distances. What appeared to be chaos to the aliens was actually a carefully orchestrated symphony of destruction. Velthic realized that his fleet was being systematically destroyed by an enemy he had completely underestimated. All ships retreat to minimum. Safe distance, he ordered. We will reassess the situation, but the humans were not finished. As the Zephyrian fleet tried to withdraw, the asteroid belt platforms opened up with their full firepower. Railguns that had been hidden for decades unleashed torrents of projectiles, while missile pods launched waves of nuclear warheads. The space around Earth became a killing field where alien technology was no match for human ingenuity. Impossible, Velthic said again as he watched another of his cruisers die. They were supposed to be primitives. Admiral Carter watched the battle from his command center with grim satisfaction. The aliens had expected to face scared primitives with crude weapons. Instead, they had encountered the descendants of a species that had spent its entire history perfecting the art of war. Every human weapon had been designed by minds that understood violence on a level the peaceful council races could never comprehend. So the surviving Zephyrian ships are retreating beyond the outer planets, reported his communications officer. We are receiving multiple surrender requests, denied, Carter said without hesitation. They wanted to pacify us, let them experience pacification. From our perspective, the battle continued for another hour as human forces hunted down the remaining alien ships. When it was over, 12 Zephyrian vessels had been destroyed and only 3 had escaped to carry word of what they had witnessed. The space around Earth was filled with wreckage and the expanding gases of ships that had been considered invincible. Dr. Foster shut down the railgun network and leaned back in her chair. Project Titan had worked beyond her wildest expectations. The quantum communication grid had allowed humanity to fight as a single entity, while their hidden weapons had given them the firepower to match any foe. "Man, we are receiving transmissions from across the galaxy," reported one of her technicians. "It appears that multiple species monitored the battle." Foster smiled grimly. The Council had rejected humanity because they thought Earth was too weak to matter. Now the entire galaxy would know that assumption had been fatally wrong. The species they had dismissed as primitive barbarians had just destroyed the most powerful military force in known space. On Zentara Prime, Jake Morrison sat in his quarters listening to the reports coming in from Earth. The other council members were in emergency session trying to understand how the humans had developed such advanced weapons without anyone knowing. The careful order of galactic civilization had been shattered in a single afternoon. Outside his window, the crystal spires of the council capital gleamed in the alien sunlight. But Jake knew that everything had changed. Humanity was no longer asking for permission to join the galactic community. They had announced their arrival with fire and fury, and the galaxy would never be the same. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been going on for 6 hours, and tempers were running higher than anyone could remember. Vextar paced back and forth in front of the great table, while his yellow eyes blazed with rage and humiliation. The other council members watched him with expressions ranging from concern to barely concealed satisfaction. "The humans must be destroyed," Vextar hissed through his translator. "They have proven themselves to be exactly the threat I warned you about. Their unprovoked attack on Zephyrian peacekeeping forces cannot go unanswered." The ethereal council member pulsed with deep red colors. "According to our analysis, the Zephyrian fleet fired the first shots. The humans were defending their home system from invasion." "Invasion?" Vextar spat. "We were implementing a protective custody order for the safety of the galaxy. These mammals responded with weapons of mass destruction that should not exist." Kira Soodle of the Aquarian spoke from her water-filled chamber. "Perhaps the question we should be asking is how the humans developed such advanced technology without our knowledge. Their relativistic weapons are beyond anything in our databases." The crystalline delegate chimed in with harmonious tones. Analysis of the battle recordings shows coordination that exceeds even our most advanced military systems. The humans fought as a single entity across multiple light minutes of space. In the observation gallery, Jake Morrison listened to the debate with growing hope. For the first time since arriving on Zentara Prime, he was hearing council members express something other than dismissal toward humanity. The demonstration of human military capability had changed the entire dynamic of galactic politics. The machine race delegate known as Unit 7 spoke in its electronic voice. Probability calculations indicate a 73% chance that the humans possess additional capabilities they have not yet revealed. Recommendation is immediate diplomatic contact to assess threat level. Diplomacy. Vexstar laughed bitterly. You want to negotiate with savages who destroyed an entire fleet without warning. They are monsters who must be contained before they spread their violence throughout the galaxy. The ancient Void Walker representative had been silent throughout the session, but now it rose to its full 3-meter height. We have observed the humans for many cycles. They are not monsters. They are survivors who learned violence because their world taught them that the alternative was extinction. Exactly my point, Vexstar said. They are too dangerous to exist as an independent species. The council speaker called for order as the debate threatened to spiral out of control. We will hear from Ambassador Morrison before proceeding further. Jake rose from his seat and walked to the center of the hall, feeling the weight of history on his shoulders. Every word he spoke now could determine whether humanity found allies or faced the combined might of 12 galactic civilizations. Honored council members, my people did not seek this conflict. We came to you in peace, requesting only the chance to join the galactic community as equals. We were rejected and insulted. Then we were threatened with conquest and slavery. We defended ourselves using whatever means were necessary. He paused and looked directly at Vexstar. High Counselor, you called us monsters, but who attacked whom? Your fleet came to our system with demands for surrender. Your weapons fired first. Your ships threatened our civilian population. We simply proved that we were not as helpless as you believed. You used relativistic weapons, Vexstar accused. Such devices are banned under galactic law. What galactic law? Jake shot back. We are not members of your council. We never agreed to your treaties. You rejected our application for membership, then attacked us for not following rules we never had a chance to accept. The Aquarian delegate rippled with what might have been amusement. The human makes a valid point. Species outside the council are not bound by our agreements. Furthermore, Jake continued, the weapons we used were defensive installations built to protect our home system. We did not attack Zephyrian territory or threaten council worlds. We defended ourselves against aggression. On Earth, President Danny Walsh was dealing with the aftermath of humanity's first interstellar war. The victory had been overwhelming, but the cost was becoming clear. 17 human ships had been lost, along with over 2,000 brave men and women. Their sacrifice had saved Earth, but Walsh knew this was only the beginning. Sir, we are receiving multiple communications from non-council species, reported his communications director. Dozens of civilizations are requesting diplomatic contact. What kind of requests? Walsh asked. Trade agreements mostly. Several are offering military alliances. 3 species are asking for protection from Zephyrian expansion. Admiral Carter entered the Oval Office carrying a thick folder of intelligence reports. Sir, we have a problem. Our victory has created a power vacuum. The Zephyrian Empire was the Council's primary military force. Without them, several regions are already showing signs of instability. Walsh rubbed his temples, feeling a headache building. So we won the battle but started a war. It was already started, Carter said firmly. The Zephyrians were never going to leave us alone. At least now the galaxy knows we can defend ourselves. Deep in the Pacific Ocean, Dr. Angela Foster was meeting with her senior staff to assess Project Titan's performance. The quantum entanglement network had exceeded all expectations, but the railgun platforms had fired nearly half their ammunition reserves. How long to restore full combat capability? She asked Dr. Carl Johnson, 6 months minimum, he replied. The manufacturing systems can produce new projectiles, but the exotic matter for the railguns takes time to synthesize, and if the Council decides to send their full military against us, Johnson looked uncomfortable. We could hold them off for maybe a week. Our weapons are effective, but we do not have the industrial capacity to fight a prolonged war against 12 civilizations. Foster nodded grimly. Then we better hope Ambassador Morrison can find us some allies. Back on Zentara Prime, the Council was preparing to vote on humanity's future. 3 options were on the table. The first was Vexstar's proposal for a joint military expedition to pacify Earth. The second was immediate acceptance of humanity into the Council despite their earlier rejection. The third was a compromise that would grant humans observer status while negotiations continued. Vexstar had been working frantically to build support for his military option, but the other species were beginning to have doubts. The humans had demonstrated capabilities that no one had suspected, and their victory over a Zephyrian fleet had sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy. The vote will be held at sunset, announced the speaker. Each member will have one final opportunity to state their position. Jake sent an encrypted message to Earth informing them of the situation. Within hours, he received President Walsh's response. The United States and its allies would not back down, but they were willing to negotiate if the Council approached them with respect rather than threats. As the alien sun began to set over Zentara Prime, Jake Morrison prepared for the most important speech of his life. In a few hours, the Council would decide whether humanity would face the combined military might of galactic civilization or finally take its place among the stars as an equal partner. The crystal spires reflected the dying light like frozen fire, while far below in the Great Hall 12 species prepared to vote on the future of the 13th. The galaxy was about to learn whether it was big enough for both the established order and the newcomers who refused to bow to anyone. The second Zephyrian fleet was 3 times larger than the first, and it brought friends. High Admiral Kelvar commanded from his massive dreadnought, while battle groups from the Void Walkers and the Silicon-based collective flanked his formation. 47 warships in total plus support vessels and troop transports for the occupation of Earth. This time, there will be no mistakes, Kelvar announced to his fleet commanders. The humans used trickery and hidden weapons to defeat Commander Velthek, but we know their capabilities now. Our shields have been recalibrated, and our formations will prevent concentrated fire. Admiral Rick Carter watched the approaching armada from his command center and felt ice in his veins. The aliens had learned from their defeat and adapted their tactics accordingly. Worse, they had brought allies who might have different defensive capabilities than the Zephyrians. Sir, incoming transmission on all frequencies, reported his communications officer. The main screen flickered to show Kelvar in his elaborate golden armor. Humans of Earth, this is High Admiral Kelvar of the Combined Pacification Fleet. Your unprovoked attack on Zephyrian peacekeepers has been judged an act of war against galactic civilization. You have 24 hours to surrender unconditionally or face total annihilation. Any attempt at resistance will result in the glassing of your entire planet. President Danny Walsh had been expecting this ultimatum, but hearing it still sent chills down his spine. Admiral, what are our options? Carter's voice was grim. Sir, we expended 60% of our ammunition in the first battle, the railgun. Platforms can engage, but they do not have enough projectiles for a sustained fight. Our conventional fleet is down to 28 ships. What about Project Titan? Walsh asked. Drive, Angela Foster answered from her underwater facility. The quantum network is fully operational, but sir, the enemy has adapted. They are staying spread out to prevent concentrated targeting, and their shields appear to have been modified. General Kate Phillips leaned forward. Sir, I recommend we activate the Scorpion protocol. The room fell silent. Scorpion was humanity's most classified defense program, and even mentioning it required presidential authorization. Walsh looked at the faces around the table and saw his own fears reflected back at him. Explain, he said quietly. Sir, Scorpion weaponizes our asteroid mining operations. We have fusion charges placed throughout the belt along with guidance systems that can redirect asteroid trajectories. If we cannot stop them with precision weapons, we hit them with mountains. Foster looked horrified. General, that would destabilize orbital mechanics throughout the inner system. The debris field could threaten Earth itself. Better to risk damage than accept slavery, Phillips replied coldly. As the debate raged on Earth, the alien fleet moved steadily inward. Kelvar had positioned his strongest ships in the center, while the faster Voidwalker vessels protected his flanks. The collective contributed automated defensive drones that swarmed around the capital ships like metallic insects. Captain Lisa Hayes prepared her surviving pilots for what might be humanity's final battle. Her squadron was down to 18 ships, but they had been upgraded with new weapons and improved armor. More importantly, they now knew that aliens could bleed. Listen up, people, she announced to her pilots. They think they have learned our tricks, but we still have a few surprises. Remember your training and watch out for each other. Lieutenant Sam Parker checked his missile loadout for the third time. Captain, what if the railguns cannot stop them? Then we ram them, Hayes said matter-of-factly. Our ships are small enough to slip through their defensive screens. A fusion reactor going critical inside their hull will ruin anyone's day. The first engagement began when the alien fleet encountered the asteroid belt. Kelvar had expected another ambush from hidden platforms, but this time the humans tried something different. Instead of fixed installations, the asteroids themselves became weapons. Collision alert, reported the tactical officer as his sensors detected movement throughout the belt. Multiple large objects are changing course. Kelvar watched in amazement as rocks the size of cities began accelerating toward his fleet under the power of hidden fusion drives. The humans had turned the entire asteroid belt into a massive kinetic weapon system. Engage with all batteries, he ordered. Destroy those rocks before they reach us. The combined fleet opened fire with every weapon at their disposal. Plasma cannons and particle beams lanced out to shatter asteroids into smaller fragments, but the humans had planned for this. Each rock contained multiple fusion charges that detonated in sequence, creating expanding clouds of high-velocity debris. Drive Foster watched from her control center as the Scorpion protocol engaged. All asteroid guidance systems are active. Impact in 37 minutes, but the aliens were not helpless. The collective drones swarmed forward to intercept the incoming rocks, while Voidwalker ships used their gravity manipulators to deflect the largest asteroids. The space between Earth and the alien fleet became a chaotic storm of rocks, plasma, and explosions. Through multiple breaches in the outer screen, reported Kelvar as tactical officer. 2 destroyers lost and 3 more damaged, the High Admiral snarled as he watched smaller asteroids slip through his defenses. Maintain course and increase forward velocity. We will break through their bombardment. That was when the railgun platforms opened fire. The humans had learned from the first battle as well. Instead of revealing all their positions at once, they fired in carefully coordinated waves that forced the aliens to choose between defending against the asteroids or the relativistic projectiles. Most chose wrong. 3 Zephyrian cruisers died in the first salvo as tungsten rods punched through their modified shields. The collective lost an entire drone squadron when a near miss created an electromagnetic pulse that fried their control systems. A Voidwalker battleship simply vanished when a direct hit triggered a catastrophic failure in its gravity drive. This is impossible, Kelvar raged. How are they maintaining such accurate fire through this debris field? The answer was the quantum entanglement network that connected every human weapon across light minutes of space. While the aliens struggled with communication delays and coordination problems, the human forces operated with perfect unity. Captain Hayes led her fighters into the chaos surrounding the alien fleet. Her ships were tiny compared to the massive capital ships, but they were fast and hard to target. She put a missile into a damaged collective vessel, while Sam Parker strafed a Zephyrian destroyer that had lost its shield generators. All ships, this is Admiral Carter, came the voice through their quantum communicators. The enemy center is breaking. Press the attack. But even as the aliens took heavy losses, they continued to advance. Their superior numbers and firepower were slowly grinding through the human defenses. The railgun platforms were running low on ammunition while the asteroid belt was being systematically cleared by alien fire. Calvar smiled grimly as his fleet emerged from the debris field. Half his ships were damaged and 12 had been destroyed, but Earth lay defenseless before him. All vessels prepare for planetary bombardment. We will teach these primitives the price of defying galactic order. President Walsh watched the alien fleet approaching Earth and made the hardest decision of his presidency. General Phillips, you have authorization for the Samson option. Phillips nodded grimly and opened a channel to hidden facilities around the globe. All Samson sites, this is command. Execute immediately. Deep beneath major cities across Earth, nuclear weapons began to detonate in carefully controlled sequences. But these were not weapons aimed at the aliens. They were charges designed to trigger massive volcanic eruptions and seismic events that would make the planet uninhabitable for anyone, including its current residents. Sir, what are you doing? Foster asked in horror. If we cannot have our world, Walsh said quietly, then no one can. Send a message to the alien fleet. Tell them they have 10 minutes to withdraw or Earth dies and takes them with it. The transmission reached Calvar just as his sensors detected the massive energy releases across the planet's surface. What manner of madness is this? He whispered as he watched volcanoes erupting and tectonic plates shifting. The humans were willing to destroy their own world rather than surrender it. In all his years of conquest, Calvar had never encountered such desperate courage. As he watched the planet below convulse in artificial earthquakes, he began to understand why the first Zephyrian fleet had been defeated. These were not civilized beings who would calculate losses and surrender when the odds became unfavorable. These were creatures who would fight to the death and beyond because they had never learned how to quit. High Admiral Calvar stared at the tactical display showing seismic activity across Earth's surface and felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. The humans were actually destroying their own planet rather than surrender it. In 300 years of conquest, he had never encountered such absolute commitment to freedom. Sir, the volcanic activity is increasing, reported his science officer. The humans appear to have triggered a chain reaction in their planet's geological systems. If this continues, the entire world will become uninhabitable within hours. Calvar's tactical officer looked up from his station. Admiral, we are also detecting massive energy buildups from their remaining weapons platforms. They are preparing to fire everything they have left. The Admiral realized that his enemy was implementing a strategy that no civilized mind could comprehend. The humans were not trying to win in any conventional sense. They were trying to make their defeat so costly that no one would ever dare attack them again. President Danny Walsh stood in the Situation Room watching feeds from around the globe as his planet tore itself apart. Yellowstone was erupting with unprecedented fury, while the San Andreas Fault was splitting California in half. The Ring of Fire around the Pacific was living up to its name. Dozens of volcanoes came alive simultaneously. Sir, we are receiving transmissions from the alien fleet, reported his communications officer. They are requesting immediate negotiations. Tell them, Walsh said quietly, that we will discuss terms when their ships are beyond the orbit of Mars. Until then, our geological systems remain active. Admiral Rick Carter watched as the alien fleet began to withdraw with obvious reluctance. So the Samson charges were only designed for limited activation. If we do not shut them down soon, the damage will become irreversible. I know, Walsh replied. But they do not know that. Dr. Angela Foster was frantically working to contain the geological chaos her president had unleashed. Carl, we need to shut down the western seismic charges immediately. The Cascadia Fault is showing stress fractures that could trigger a tsunami. Drive. Carl Johnson was coordinating with emergency teams across 3 continents. The automated systems are responding, but some sites were damaged by the initial detonations. We may have started something we cannot stop. Meanwhile, in space, Captain Lisa Hayes was leading what remained of her fighter squadron in a final desperate attack on a withdrawing alien fleet. Her ships were outnumbered 50-1, but she had orders to make sure the aliens remembered this day. "All fighters, this is Hayes," she transmitted. "We are going to hit their command ship. Follow me in and make every shot count." Lieutenant Sam Parker followed his captain into the teeth of the alien defensive fire. Plasma bolts and particle beams filled space around them. They dove toward Kelvar's massive dreadnought. Half the human fighters died in the first minute, but the survivors pressed on with suicidal determination. Hayes lined up her targeting computer on the alien ship's bridge section and fired every missile she had. For Earth, she screamed as enemy. Fire found her fighter and turned it into an expanding ball of plasma. Sam Parker saw his captain die and felt something break inside his mind. He armed his ship's self-destruct system and dove straight for the dreadnought's hull. The explosion when he hit was small compared to the massive alien vessel, but it sent a message that echoed across the galaxy. Humans would rather die than submit. On Centaur Prime, the Galactic Council was an emergency session as reports came from the battlefield. The images they were seeing defied everything they thought they knew about civilized behavior. A species was destroying its own homeworld rather than accept conquest. "This is madness," Vextar hissed as he watched volcanic eruptions tear apart Earth's surface. "They are savages who would rather die than accept proper guidance." But other council members were beginning to see something different in the human actions. The ethereal delegate pulsed with deep blue light. "This is not madness. This is a demonstration of will that exceeds anything in our historical records." Kira Sudal of the Aquarians rippled with what might have been respect. "They are showing us that some things are worth more than survival. Perhaps we have misjudged this species." Jake Morrison had been allowed to address the council one final time. "Honored members, you are witnessing the fury of a people who refuse to be enslaved. My people are not destroying their world out of spite. They are showing you what happens when you push humanity beyond its breaking point." He gestured toward the displays showing the battle. "You called us primitive, but we have weapons you do not understand. You called us violent, but we fought only when attacked. You called us uncivilized, but we are willing to sacrifice everything for our freedom. What do you want from us?" asked the crystalline delegate in chiming tones. "Respect," Jake said simply. "Treat us as equals, not as subjects to be managed. We seek knowledge and friendship, but we will accept neither at the price of our independence." The Voidwalker representative spoke in its deep voice. "The humans have proven their point. They possess both the capability and the will to defend themselves. Perhaps it is time to reconsider our position." Back in Earth's solar system, the alien fleet had withdrawn to a safe distance while frantic negotiations took place between the two sides. High Admiral Kelvar found himself in the unprecedented position of discussing terms with primitives who had just handed him his worst defeat in centuries. "The Zevrian Empire demands reparations for the destruction of our vessels," he transmitted to the human leadership. President Walsh's reply was immediate and blunt. "The Zevrian Empire can demand whatever it wants. Earth recognizes no authority over our actions except our own. You attacked us and we defended ourselves. If you want reparations, sue us in Galactic Court after you accept our membership in the Council." Dr. Foster had managed to contain most of the geological damage, but Earth would bear scars from this day for generations. Mount Vesuvius was active again for the first time in centuries, while new volcanic islands were forming in the Pacific. The message had been sent at a terrible cost. As the hours passed and negotiations continued, the galaxy began to understand what had happened. A species that had been rejected as too primitive for membership had just fought the combined military might of 3 council races to a standstill. More importantly, they had demonstrated a level of commitment that made conquest impossible. "You cannot defeat people who are willing to destroy everything rather than surrender," observed Unit 7 of the Collective in its electronic voice. "The humans have made themselves unconquerable through their willingness to embrace mutual destruction." The final agreement was reached at dawn Earth time. The combined fleet would withdraw completely from human space while Earth would halt its geological self-destruction. More importantly, the Galactic Council would reconsider humanity's application for membership with full voting rights. Jake Morrison returned to the council chamber for the formal vote. This time, there was no mockery or laughter. The delegates who had dismissed humans as primitive barbarians now looked at him with expressions ranging from respect to outright fear. The motion before the council announced the speaker is to grant immediate full membership to the human species, with all rights and responsibilities thereof. The vote was unanimous. President Walsh addressed the galaxy from the ruins of what had once been a peaceful planet. Behind him, smoke still rose from newly formed volcanic vents, while emergency crews worked to repair the damage humanity had inflicted on itself. To the species of the Galactic Council, we accept your offer of membership. But let there be no mistake about the terms. We join you as equals, not as subjects. We will contribute to galactic civilization, but we will not be ruled by it. And 2. Anyone who thinks humans can be conquered or enslaved, we have one message. He gestured toward the scarred landscape behind him. This is what happens when you push us too far. We would rather burn down the galaxy than live in chains. Remember that the next time someone laughs at human fury, the transmission ended, and across the galaxy 12 civilizations sat in stunned silence. They had gained a new member, but they had also learned that the universe was a far more dangerous place than they had imagined. Humanity had announced its arrival among the stars not with diplomacy or trade, but with a demonstration of absolute will. The species that had been mocked as primitive had just redefined what it meant to be civilized. The council would never laugh at humans again.